Audit planning and fieldwork. Audit program. It is a proper instruction of an auditor to conduct. There are two types of audit program, which is standardized and tailored. Standardized is the audit program was prepared based on the standard. Make use of the uniform work papers, and this type of audit program will be provided to the staff who expected to conduct the audit according to the standard. Meanwhile, tailored is to rely their own knowledge of auditing techniques and their past experience. Audit documentation is to record of all the auditing procedure applied, evidence applied, and conclusion reached by the auditor in audit management. There are two types of file, which is permanent files and current files. Permanent files, it was contained with the data of historical and containing data. Meanwhile, current file is the type of audit document is applicable for audit program, general information, and working of trial balance. Preparation of working papers. It is the record procedure applied, test performed, information obtained, and the conclusion. The content of working papers is audit plan, working trial balance, narrative summaries, adjusting and reclassifying entries, and supporting schedules. Ownership and confidentiality. In ownership, it was the auditor's property and cannot reveal any information with the client permission. Even when the auditor's client partnership is over, the ownership still be maintained. Meanwhile, in confidentiality, it is a must to ask permission so it can be made public. Client documentation must be kept confidential and maintain the confidential partnership with the client. There are 5 things that we have to know in internal control, which is management and auditor's responsibilities, objective of internal control, component of internal control, evaluation of the internal control, and assessment and documenting understanding of internal control. Firstly, management and auditor's responsibilities. Management responsibilities is to maintain and report on internal control. Meanwhile, auditor's responsibilities is to understand, test, and report on internal control. There are 7 objectives of internal control that must be made to prevent errors in the records. Firstly, all transactions recorded was valid and protected. Second, properly authorized and protected. Third, the valid transaction should be recorded and the client's procedure must be provide controls. 4. The transaction is properly valued to prevent errors in the calculation. 5. Properly included in subsidiary records, correctly summarized and posted to the general ledger. 6. Recorded at the proper time. 7. Properly being classified according to the client's chart of accounts. The 5 components of internal control is control environment, the entity's risk assessment process, the information system, control activities, and monitoring of controls. This is the 5 components of internal control. Firstly, control environment. Setting the tone of the organization to influence the control consciousness of its people. This control consists of the management's policies, procedures, and related action that will reflect the attitude and philosophy of the top management. There are 6 factors that enhance the control environment. A. Management's philosophy and operating style is to evaluate management overall attitude towards control, communication and enforcement of integrity and ethical, and commitment to compete. B. Organizational structure. It is to facilitate goods and should be established the organizational independent of functional area. C. Assigning authority and responsibilities. It is to reduce the fraud and errors from the provided segregation of function. D. Internal audit function. It is to monitor the control procedures and provide suggestions to improve the system. Effectiveness of internal audit should possess adequate technique skills, knowledge of multifarious, integrity, objectivity, and independence. E. Policies on the use of information technology. It is to ensure that information generated by the system is reliable. F. Policies on the human resource. Quality and integrity of personnel are critical factors in establishing a proper control environment. It should have a sound policies for the selection and training of individuals. The second component of internal control is the entity's risk assessment process. It is an important aspect of auditors' work. Auditors should obtain an understanding of the entity's process to identify business risks related to financial reporting objectives, estimate the significance of the risk, assess the likelihood of the occurrence, and decide the relevant action to respond to the risk. The third component of internal control is the information system, including the related business process relevant to financial reporting and communication. It can be defined as a set of organized procedures and policies that provide computer-based information to support decision-making and control in an entity. It covers all the aspects that related to the preparation, collection, generation, and transmission of information. It is important that the auditor carefully consider the firm's information system. The area an auditor has to consider is classes of transactions, the procedure within IT and manual system, the related accounting record, how the information system capture events and conditions, and the financial reporting process used to prepare the entity's financial statement. The fourth component of internal control is control activities. Increasing use of IT affect the way that control activities are implemented. For example, authorization, performance review, information processing, physical control, and segregation of duties. The fifth component of internal control is monitoring of control. Auditors should obtain an understanding of the major types of activity that the entity used to monitor internal control. Internal auditor who contribute to the monitoring activities, and the auditor should consider the role of internal audit. It is an ongoing process to assess the effectiveness of internal control performance over time. The fourth thing that we have to know in internal control is evaluation of the internal control. There are 4 steps may be identified in the evaluation of internal control, which is preliminary review, gathering information, understanding and preliminary evaluation of control, test of control, and final evaluation of control. Preliminary review is the beginning of the auditor to obtain preliminary information about the internal control environment. Gathering information, understanding, and preliminary evaluation of control is to evaluate individually as well as collectively in terms of their likely effectiveness in determining fraud and errors. In gathering information, there are 2 popular devices that was used in control procedures, which is internal control questionnaire and flowchart. In internal control questionnaire, it consists of series of questions, acts like a checklist to cover all aspects, and can omit some unusual areas. Meanwhile, flowchart is a schematic diagram that portrays the internal control structure. It provides clues to possible weaknesses. As for the understanding of control procedure, It was the next stage of the auditor to integrate the understanding of the information gathered from the various sources. And the final stage of the evaluation of internal control is preliminary evaluation of control risk, where auditors should consider the fraud and error that could occur. Test of control. The test of control performed by the auditor to obtain evidence that the internal control procedures. Common procedures that used by the auditor is observation of personnel in performing their duties, discussion regarding the performance duties, inspection and evaluation of documents for evidence. Besides, the auditor used tests of transaction to help them determine whether the structure was generate reliable and accurate data. The last step may be identified in the evaluation of internal control is final evaluation of control. It is to help trace the reason for this deviation from prescribed control procedures. Assessment and documenting understanding of internal control. Tools that available to the auditor to documenting the understanding. It should be clearly identify each component of internal control. Letter of management. This agreement will be made at the end of the audit work. The agreement must be listed with the weakness of the design or operation, significance and the effect, and give or make suggestion. The content of the letter of management is purpose of the letter written, purpose of the internal control, disclaimer or clause that the weaknesses notified are not necessarily all weak, recommendation for improvement, and request info. Thank you for your attention.